If you truly knew me, you would realize that even though I say racist shit and I do racist shit and I agree with racist people, I am not in fact racist. Why? Because in my mind and in my soul, I believe that all lives matter.
So yeah, yeah. How has it been? How has how has this week been treating you?
So much is happening. So much is happening all of the time that I am exhausted just by looking at my news feed. It is exhausting to exist. In a matter of a week, we went from, okay, some racist people kind of like doing crazy shit, and then now it's like protests and everything, and it feels like it keeps on adding on top of, like, you think, okay, this is as far as it, like this is gonna be like the thing, and then something else happens, and then something else happens, and something else happens.
I mean, I think Trevor Noah said it best. Is that it's has been basically just dominoes falling the past probably
Yeah.
month or so, for, at least this time around, because obviously the things that have been happening and that have been basically dominating the news cycle, it's not something new at all. This has become like fashion. It has become cyclical, where a bunch of shit happens. There's outrage, and rightfully so, by the way. It becomes this powder keg that explodes with people protesting, people rioting, and it just escalates. Here's the fucking thing about this. It's the police's job to de-escalate, but they have shown time and time again. They think that their job is to literally escalate it. These protests, and one part is about police brutality. They've been shooting peaceful protesters. They've been aiming for their heads. And yeah, like you
Yeah.
said, it has been absolutely exhausting. And to me, like the big, I mean, since this is, there's so much to unpack. There's a lot. I mean, that one thing for me has been this subset of people saying that all lives matter. No shit, Sherlock. All lives do matter. Water is wet. The way that you come off is that you're basically saying that if I'm not represented in this movement, if I'm not represented in your struggle, then your struggle is invalid to me. And that's how you come off when you say all lives matter. To illustrate this is like, all right, did you get mad when the ALS ice bucket challenge was all the rage? Were you out there tweeting ALS? All diseases are bad. Why aren't we doing ice bucket challenges for Lyme disease? I'm like, yeah, dude. All diseases are indeed bad, but that doesn't mean that you need to dismiss this one ice bucket
Well,
challenge.
this one exactly. It's a statement that pretends that you're caring about everyone when in fact what you want is to excuse yourself, to not care about anything. It's like all lives matter, but like, to be honest, like next time that someone is affected by police brutality, you're gonna be like, but was he poor, or was he whatever? And going back to your point of like the diseases, it's like we have, for example, October, which usually is a month where a lot of donations are made to breast cancer and whatever. But it doesn't mean that doctors and people stop caring about every other type of cancer. People are still investigating potential cures, and it's not like it's October, so I'm sorry, chemo patients, we are only accepting breast cancer. No, no, no. Like, you can in fact care about more than one thing at the same time without your
And
head exploding.
absolutely, and you should care about more than one thing,
Ideally.
ideally. And yeah, because when people say this, all lives matter, is that they come off as dismissive. They come off as people who obviously don't have empathy towards people that aren't like themselves, right?
Yeah.
I believe that when they see and hear these three words, Black Lives Matter, they literally think, oh, do only Black Lives Matter? I'm like, no, dude, that's not what they're saying. Like, you need to be able to look beyond these three simple words, because I think there's a two after Black Lives Matter. I think that what they're trying to say is Black Lives Matter too. They matter just as much as every other race, and this isn't a zero sum game where if you say Black Lives Matter, you're only a proponent of Black lives. I'm like, does it mean you have to be literally you're abandoning your ideals to your own culture, to your own identity? It's been shown time and time again that if these videos weren't being shown, weren't being shared, then they would literally just turn into another statistic, and no one would be held
Yeah.
into account.
When Amy Cooper, the woman that was in Central Park and that told the black man, like, I am gonna call the cops on you because you're asking me to put my dog on a leash. There was a very good tweet. I forget where I saw it, but but there was a similar question. Like, this is a woman that works at I think she worked like a loan company or like a bank, and she's like, how many times has this one been the person that tells someone, like, should we trust this person with a loan, or should we give, or how many times has she been the person that asks, well, is this black person that wants to get a job here the right person for the job? It's not about the worst case scenario, but also about all the steps before the worst case scenario. I think it was Will Smith who has been quoted around. I don't know if he said it because of this or before. Racism isn't getting worse; it's getting filmed.
Yeah, I've heard that. I didn't know if it was Will Smith.
Well, according to the internet I'm according to my Twitter, it's been Will Smith. Another great quote from the internet is, you shouldn't believe everything you read in the internet. The great Abraham Lincoln is usually uh, credited for that quote.
A man ahead of his time.
Exactly. People were like, what are you talking about? He's like, I don't know. Just don't believe everything you read on the internet. Another point that you had mentioned that I find super relevant, how people are just like some people say, like, all lives matter, but then other people are saying, like, the people who I feel really sorry for are the business owners and the people who own a store or whatever that's being looted or that's being attacked. For me, it's like super annoying because it's like, yeah, I get it. Like, property is,
Property
people
damage
have
is bad.
property damage is bad, yes, and people put a lot of money into having yes, I get it, I get it, I get it, but there, like, somebody died, and that could have been prevented too, and it's like, why do you only focus on the, well, you could just not break a store's window, and, like, yeah, and George Floyd could have not been murdered. That's also a thing that could have happened. And people, like, act like police brutality and racism are just forces of nature that we can't affect in any way. So you just have to deal with it and deal with it in a peaceful manner. And usually being told deal with it with a peaceful manner is sit there and take it.
Yeah, because obviously the peaceful manner that they've tried in the past, the whole kneeling down, that didn't fucking work. So,
People loved it. It got great reviews.
yeah, right? And I think when people, well, the way I take it, when people say that these businesses are being looted, yeah, there's certain people's lives or their livelihood are being destroyed. But let's put this into context. Insurance is a thing people seem to forget exists. If I was a business owner, I'd be like, finally, the fucking premiums that I've been paying are gonna be put to goddamn use, because you go
Yeah.
throughout years and you just pay these insurance people money, and in the end, if nothing happens, you basically just gave the money, and that's fine because that's what insurance is.
Yes.
These people are gonna get their money back. They're gonna be able to rebuild if they so choose. You know who's not gonna be able to rebuild? You know who can't just go ahead and put in a claim to be like, oh, I got killed. Let me just put in my insurance claim to get my life back. I mean,
Yeah, no, that doesn't work.
I don't know if it's just this type of I don't want to call it racism, but they view businesses and the people who own those businesses as someone who has this inherent value that they're job creators, so we must protect them at all cost, as opposed to this one black guy who was killed, and and they're like, oh, he probably wasn't contributing to society the way Target is.
Yeah. But here, and the other thing is, because people will like will tell like George Floyd couldn't like shouldn't have been murdered, and then people will be like, but he was being like the police were called on him for forgery, I think, and it's like okay, fine, maybe he was trying to pay with some fake money, like okay, fine, let's go with that. That doesn't mean he should get murdered for it.
Maybe police shouldn't be judge, jury, and executioner.
Maybe.
Uh, they should just do their fucking job, detain, investigate, and arrest.
The way a lot of police have been responding to peaceful protests, and you know how they're supposed to be de-escalating conflict, but apparently they go in and they're like, de-escalate, what's that?
I'm gonna de-escalate my Escalade on your fucking body.
Yeah. My God. And then living in Mexico and seeing all of this, happen. Because of course there's been like support being shown toward Black Lives Matter protests like in England, and I think Germany also did a thing. You mentioned like here they went to the embassy and left.
A number of people went to the U.S. embassy and decided to put roses on the cages outside of the embassy, where since there's a fuck ton of protesting always happening in Mexico outside of the U.S. embassy, they had to put cages to keep them in. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
There's this phenomenon happening in which Mexicans and just people living here in Mexico, like not even like all Mexicans, are showing support, and they're met with people being like, "Oh, but you don't care about this." Like again, like this idea of you can only care about the one thing at any time, and if you show you care about this one thing, then it means you don't care about anything else, which translates here in Mexico to like, oh, you care about racism in the US, but you don't care about racism in Mexico. And it's like, yes, like I do. We were just talking about this, but like right now we're talking about this. I can't make every post like, it honestly feels like they want your like post to be like, racism is bad, and then like have an asterisk and have a list of things that are also bad, like, and also global warming, and you should care about the orcas.
Yeah, guy, just because Leonardo DiCaprio donated to the Amazon doesn't mean he doesn't care about the rest of the environment. I'm like, you again.
He's like, he's just writing that check. Fuck the rest of the force.
On the on that memo line, right?
Fuck the tundra.
Fuck non-Amazon biomes. I find it really, really sad that as a Mexican, other Mexicans are like, yeah, dude, why do you care about what's going on over there when there's a lot of things going on over here? I'm like, I am not a robot with one directive. I care about most of my family. I don't just care about my mom, guy. I don't know about you.
I love that. Like you buy a Mother's Day card and just outside the store, just someone like, you don't care about your dad, do you?
Bro, it's Mother's Day. Like, And that's like literally the perfect analogy. I'm like, right now, this is what's happening. This is what's at the forefront of our mind. This is something that has momentum, that has movement, and this is something that could possibly lead to some sort of change. So we should all give our support to that to see hopefully that something comes out of it. Because again, if we do just if for goddamn some miracle does happen and we abolish racism in the U.S., boom, we don't have to worry about that. We on the Kanban board we could just put that to done, and we have a backlog of a billion other things that we can just start working on.
Exactly.
But yeah, anyways, no, I'm glad that we had this talk. It's actually been a cathartic for me, just like talking this out, just because of everything that's happened this weekend. Unfortunately, we only do have however long this podcast will be edited down to talk about these issues. But yeah, I'm glad that we did.
Me too.
Want to take us away? All lives matter.
Okay. Well, people, donate where you can. Help where you can. Subscribe to the channel. Click the bell so you know when we post new videos. And follow us on social media. We are La Semanal Show on Twitter and La.Semanal on Instagram. And I think that is it. Don't be a douchebag for the rest of the week. Let's just not be on Twitter for a week. That should be the thing for this week. Have a nice week, and we'll see you next week on La Semanal.